All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 9th episode now of the Temple Podcast. I have with me today apocdud, or let me XeshTV. It is Tom Henry. Is that correct?
Hey, prepared, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. Prepared, prepped.
That's it.
Yeah. So thanks for joining me here, mate. Appreciate it. As the second interview on this thing, it's going to be a interesting one. Obviously, player for Genuine Gaming recently had a 2-0 win over Avant to get you into the Derby. So I imagine we'll talk about that at some point. Obviously, though, I have actually been watching you play for a decent amount of time now. Back in the days of the old, what was it, Masterminds versus Greyhound lineups, where everybody was excited about that, and you've had you've been quite a journeyman when it comes to those sort of lineups, I guess. Moving from Masterminds to GZ, and then over to Boo, and now Genuine Gaming. So it's been quite a ride for you. So talk a little bit about that Masterminds lineup. Obviously, right now you're playing in a lineup with players previously from that team. I think Skull is that correct? Is there anyone else?
Skull and Jinx are both from Masterminds. So it was Nighthawk, Strax, Jinx, and Skull, and then me. I think that was the main iteration that I was in. That was a while ago. I honestly don't even remember too much about the team. It was kind of a very, I don't know. It was a decent team, but we were very, pretty unstructured, pretty. Yeah. We didn't really have much clue what to do, I guess. And I think I was IGLing for half that time.
Really.
And then Skull was the other IGL for a fair bit of it. And so then at one point, I think I got sick of the game and just quit. And
fair enough.
That was kind of the end of my time in Masterminds. But yeah, we had some decent games in there. We beat Greyhound that one time when they had to use Cossair.
Yep.
That was like the OG, the one with who was in it? I think it was Grat.
Yeah, Gratification would have been in that lineup.
Yeah.
A while ago. So was it the? Do you think it was the in-game leading that kind of resulted in you having no interest in it? Obviously, I know a lot of people talk about how taxing that is, especially if you're still on those new lineups. It kind of can take a lot out of your gameplay. So do you think that was maybe a reason why you took a break, or was it something else?
Honestly, that lineup everyone just got kind of into the position where they hated each other for a bit.
Brilliant. Yep. Classic.
Yeah. 11-bit Skull had the shittest attitude at one point there. he was such a dick to play with. So I got pretty tilted a lot at that, and people weren't listening to calls as much and stuff like that. But we were still friends. We had good times and stuff like that. But by the time we got to AEM, there was an AEM land where I think we were under Masterminds. Yeah, AEM season 3 or some shit. Yeah, or season 2, where it was sort of imploding at that point.
Brilliant.
And that was when we started Richie in the lineup, actually. Who, I don't know if you know him, but he was a funny guy. But yeah, we just kind of just started to implode, and it just got a bit of a pain to play. And I think at that point I'd stopped IGLing. I actually kind of, but that would have contributed to it because I fucking hated IGLing for a while there.
Yeah.
It's only recently that I've come back to IGLing.
Oh, are you doing that currently in this lineup, or is it more of a mixed bag?
So I'm all IGL, and then everyone kind of contributes. Yeah. It's not just me making everything. We've got, there's no de facto secondary call or anything, but I make the judgment call as to whether we're going to do it.
Yeah.
But everyone kind of throws in their suggestions and stuff. It's kind of that iteration of Cloud9 with Americans and stuff where they're throwing in shit. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but I do have the kind of veto power, I guess.
Right, veto power. But it's more of a sort of loose setup.
The general kind of calls, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, you talked a little bit about the obviously you can get to a point when you're playing, because you play so much for these people, that it kind of gets like, oh, you know, I hate your guts right now. So that also is something that people talk about just in general, like normal workplace environment, where people say, you know, it's not always a good idea to work with family or to work with close friends, because it can kind of, you know, conflict there and hurt your friendships. So do you think like that ever plays a part in playing at this level, or do you think it's more of like a, you can sort of break friendships up, but it's never really affected you in a huge way?
I don't think I've ever reached the point where I've had to like stop being friends with someone because of the game, but you're gonna have arguments every single like any lineup you're in, you're gonna have arguments at some point or another.
Yeah.
And the main thing is, are people mature enough to move past it and actually hash it out in a reasonable way, or is it just people hold grudges and they can't express, you know, what in a, you know, actually like a proper way? And that's kind of like the downfall of a lot of teams, is they have these. Is my thing frozen?
Yeah, it was for a second. That we're back now though. So.
Yeah, that's the downfall of a lot of teams, is that they can't express, like, you know, the emotions they have against other people in a proper way, and they end up just imploding and dying.
So would you say that it's almost more beneficial when you have like players who are willing to argue with each other, instead of players that kind of, you know, they don't like to argue, don't like confrontation at all, and then sort of harbor a lot of those feelings? There's a very fine line you got to walk, right?
Yeah. Like you've got players who their first reaction is just they just blow up, they get so mad, and they just start ranting and raving, blah blah blah. Whereas and then there's people who never want to have any confrontation. Like that's pretty much what I used to do. Is I would never say anything because I just wanted to keep everyone happy and keep it the same, you know, on a level. But I think the most effective way to manage it is, you know, you have mature discussions about stuff when everyone's calm and no one's like, everyone has a say, everyone talks about it, blah blah blah. Whereas when people start just fucking shouting at each other and swearing at each other, that's when shit just goes pear-shaped. So so it's really important to maintain a kind of like a positive environment, and if you're going to have arguments, having them in a constructive way, I would say, is the most important thing about the team environment.
Do you think people struggle to keep those arguments out of an actual, like, in mid-game, or have you never really, has it always been like there's a general understanding that when you're playing you harbor that, and then after it is when you start the argument?
Yes, that's it. It's good question, because we, up until this team, that would be a consistent issue of like having arguments about the previous round. People, you know, being like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we need to do this, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in this team, we've implemented a rule where basically, if it's not something that's going to directly affect the next round, and it's not, you know, extremely pertinent to the current thing, then don't bring it up. Just leave it till after the game. Saying things like leading questions, like, you know, like what's happening, like what's going on, like how did you die, blah blah blah. That's not really helpful unless you're proposing a solution. So that's something that actually really helps our team environment, is just stopping the kind of aggressive, like passive aggressive questions. Does that make sense?
No, I see it. So you also had a little bit of a, we talked about, briefly touched it before, but you had a little bit of a time on Ground Zero. So what was the experience like in that lineup compared to, obviously, these other, you know, Masterminds, Taboo and Genuine now? It's kind of, you know, it's a fairly, like, you've had a core that's been together for a long time. So what was it like sort of stepping out of that core and going to play for GZ, who's, you know, have a kind of different style, I would imagine?
Yeah, definitely. So the roster I played with it was Willie KS, Majestic, Moo Juice, and Extinct. And then at one point we removed Moo Juice for, I actually can't remember.
Yeah, no, I can't remember either.
I can't even think, but it's someone. And I know Void stood in for, I don't know who it was. Anyway, I think the major, like, I went from IGLing in all my, like, the past 2 years before that, like, all my teams I was IGLing, to suddenly I was not having to do it anymore, and Willie was IGLing. And we had, like, sort of similar styles, but we tended to especially towards the end of the team, tended to clash a fair amount because I got, I don't know, I just had different opinions as to what we should be doing, that kind of thing. I think eventually reached the point where we couldn't really play on the same team.
Yeah.
You know, like we couldn't have the other one RGLing, basically. So, it was Waffy. That's what it was, Waffy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
there but overall, it was a fun team to be part of. Like, got along with everyone. Majestic was great. Love that guy. And it was like we had a good team environment and stuff like that. But in terms of the actual results, it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
It was kind of just like very average.
So you had a lot of. It was mainly just the clashing of minds, I guess, between you and Willie KS, because you both had that sort of in-game leader play style, I would assume. So were you always? Do you think? So when I talked to Jara, he said that very early on he was almost kind of like pushed into playing the IGL role. You know, nobody else was doing it, so I did it. So is that similar to you, or did you have an interest in playing the in-game leader role?
I think the main thing that kind of started for me was I just got. I'm one of those people who struggles to play under other IGLs.
Yeah.
To an extent, and it's. I don't know if it's like a need to have control. I don't know what it is, but I tend to do best when I'm kind of more in the leader.
I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to be able to help you with this.
I don't know. But it definitely was a part of it was that there's not that many people that want to do it, and there weren't many people that were good at it. But part of it was that I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it at times.
Yeah.
You make a good call, or like you feel like you're contributing to the team in a really good way.
Yeah.
Other times where I fucking hate it. I just want to stop talking and just shoot people.
Right.
Yeah. But I started out IGLing from my second ever team, which was like velox.au back in CGA years ago. With Extreme 2G. I don't know if you know, he's a mate of mine who plays PUBG professionally right now. But that was like my second team and started IGLing from there. And I kind of kept it up the entire way through till the end of Masterminds. And just gradually learning. Like I had to pretty much teach myself most of it because I never really played with any players that were more experienced than me. Like,
yeah.
It was always just fucking winging it every time and just hoping stuff would work and trying to learn shit, but not really having a clue what I was doing. But yeah, it's been a long road, but I'd say I'm at the point where I enjoy it.
Yeah,
to a certain extent.
For sure. So obviously Jara touched on that as well about it being a struggle early on because it's very hard to find somebody who has a lot of experience who's willing to sort of share that down and carry down that sort of experience, lower down the team ranking. So for you, did you ever, even later on, have you ever had a chance to sort of talk to anybody that has a lot of experience and sort of get their opinions on in-game leading, or up to this point has it all just been, I'm just going to build what I want to build?
Yeah, so the only people I've talked to about it were, funnily enough, Noisier from Breakaway. Back when I was in CGA, I paid him $15 for an hour of coaching.
Brilliant.
And that was like one of the first people I talked to. That gave me some insight because at that point I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even really know what defaults were. I was just out of depth. And then a guy called XeshTV, back when I was in Ritus, he was like the coach of that team. He used to play 1.6, I think. And so he coached us for a few hours, kind of got some insight from him. And then up until now, there was no one else, and now it's Oxy, our coach, is the one. He gives a lot of insight. Like a lot of it, it's just a lot of shit I would never have thought about.
Yeah,
I had no clue was even a factor in decision making, and he's just like, "What the fuck are you doing? You need to do this." And I'm like, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah. So I hear a lot of people say there's a lot of things when you get to the level that you're at now where, especially if you're an in-game leader, you get to that point and then suddenly it's almost like your eyes are opened and you start to see all these new things that impact the game as an in-game leader. So just could you give us like an example of something that you learned where you were like, I didn't even know that was a thing? Like, why is, you know?
There's been a lot of, they sound very minor, but there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have come across. I wouldn't have thought about myself unless that had been told me. Like, for example, basing your plays around your current economy on like the CT side, right? Like something I never would have thought about before this team. And you know, I'd call, regardless of what money we had, like how much we had in the bank for next round, I would call an aggressive play potentially.
Yeah.
Whereas it's kind of something generally you want to call something aggressive if you have money left in the bank that you can kind of take into the next round in case this doesn't pay off. You know, and you want to do a more secure round a less risky round if you don't have anything to fall back on. So that's just like one really minor thing that it's not something I would have. Like, and there's lots of little things like that, you know, just little stuff in like the defaults and executes, you know, stuff that is like stuff that I'd always been doing. That's, you know, had to explain to me that it's just pretty stupid. It doesn't really achieve the purpose. So there's definitely a kind of an eye-opening thing at a certain point. And I think makes you realize that there's so much shit you don't know. Like at this point, I'm still a complete idiot about half the stuff in the game.
Yeah.
So lots to learn.
Yeah, so it's almost like the economy adds an entirely different structure that you don't really get to see at a casual level. Like, you know, when you're in MM, you run up mid, you do a play. It doesn't really matter how much money you got in the bank. You're trying some crazy shit play just to get something started. Whereas that economy, it's so you really have to hold that in the back of your mind when you're playing at this sort of level. You know, like, okay, well, how much money do we have here? So, in a way, the economy update would probably affect you quite a lot, right? With now you having to, you know, okay, we've got to do the new math of how much money the other team has and how much money we have.
I just did not want to think about that. I barely got my head around the previous economy one because I just hate maths. And then this new one comes out, and I honestly just leave that to.
Who knew maths would come back to haunt you, eh?
Yeah, fuck. I dropped out of this for a reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play CS:GO. Oh, math, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, it does make it is an interesting change there because, you know, it does theoretically give more gun rounds, and I'd always dislike the whole like you lose both pistols, you lose 6 rounds kind of thing. That always irritated me quite a bit, especially as a player who sucks at pistols. So.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously, this genuine lineup that you were in now, you just recently had this 2-0 result over Avant. Now, I think a lot of people would probably have Avant favoured above you in that matchup. I think you were probably the underdog coming into it, yet you've come out of that with, you know, a 2-0 victory. And these victories, you know, the two maps, obviously Train, Overpass, very solid maps to take them on. And both maps, you sort of formed a level of a comeback there. Obviously finishing both halves. I think it was both halves where, oh no, it might have just been the Overpass map where you finished down. But
yeah, Overpass we were down 13-6.
Yeah. So when you're sort of playing at that level and you're seeing the scoreboard go up and you're seeing that team continue to push forward, how exactly do you set yourself and go, okay guys, you know, we've got to kick ourselves into gear to here? How do you form and complete a successful comeback?
It's interesting. Back when I was less experienced, I guess, I used to get massive nerves in every game, but especially when we were down quite a bit and we started making a comeback. In that game, I was just sitting there like, I don't know, I reckon we're going to win this. Like, I don't know, I was just really relaxed for whatever reason. And even when we were down 13-6, I never really felt like we were out of control of the game. Like, we knew what the issues were and we just needed to win the rounds, which sounds simple as, but it wasn't one of those games where it's like, fuck, what do we do? Like, how the hell do we do this?
You thought you had some success, and it was just little things here and there where you were like, okay, well, we can build off that.
It was just stupid mistakes that, you know, if we just play how we practiced, then we hit the shots, we'll win. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, we just played our setups. We got onto that CT side. We lost the first 4 rounds, which was pretty rough, losing pistol and losing the first gun round. But then from that point on, we kind of, like, the way we played just countered what they were doing. And I didn't even play very well. I was just like sitting back, letting everyone else clean up kills and shit, and it was great. But yeah, no one, like, I don't know. We never really kind of think about the score that much. It's kind of, you just keep playing.
You kind of block it out.
Yeah, it's not like a, oh shit, you know, like we're doing the comeback, guys, keep going. It's kind of more just, on to the next round.
Yeah, you got the sticky note at the top of the screen to say, just we don't look at the score.
Exactly. So yeah, it wasn't a particularly, like, it wasn't even a particularly intense comeback. I don't know. It wasn't super. I don't even know the word, but everyone was very calm, relaxed. Just kept grinding out rounds, and yeah, that was pretty much it. So
would you say that in a situation where you are sort of, you know, struggling to find a round, what is what in your, like, if you've ever been in that situation, what is generally your go-to of, like, okay, well, is it just a timeout to sort of say, guys, let's calm down? Or is, you know, like, is it go back to defaults and let's just try and find a pick and then work off that? Is there a certain, like, thing that you go to when you're in a tough situation?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, I'd say my most common reaction to that is take a time out, take a breather, and be like, guys, what can we abuse here? What are they doing that's winning the rounds? And, you know, we've been trying all these things, like trying a default, it's not working, try and pull out a pocket strat, you know, something fast, catch them off guard, or something that's a little bit more unusual, and see if that works. And I mean, at a certain point, you just can't win rounds, and there's not much you can do. But definitely just trying to, most of the time it's an adaptation issue. Like, you're not adapting to how they're playing, and that's something that we've worked on a lot with this lineup, is adapting to how the other team plays. Like, when I used to call, I'd kind of sort of do it a little bit in theory, but the majority of what I do is just call, like, just go through like a rotation of our strats, you know, just be like, if I could just, you know, let's do our B hit this round, let's go mid, let's do A. And there wasn't too much thought process behind it. But now with this team, everyone feeds back a lot of info. And we kind of have protocols set up for how to adapt to what they're doing. So that's, just pretty much trying to adapt, pull out a pocket strat. That's pretty much it. Yeah, so like Counter-Strike, well, that's no pun intended, but counter-striking, you know what I mean? Like, you see them doing a certain sort of defense or offense, and you go, okay, well, this is what we pull out for this one. Is that's kind of what you mean? Yeah, it's like, you know, they're fighting heavy mid on Mirage, you know, it's time to pull out this strat. Or, you know, they're playing aggressive A main, let's do the A split, like that kind of thing. And that's why it's really important that everyone, you know, is on the same page and understands the theory behind the map, so they can feed the information back. And that makes it a lot easier to call when everyone's, you know, feeding. Yeah. So you think a lot of people, when you get into these, a lot of analysts, when you get into these BO3 matchups, right? Obviously, it's a lot different to a BO1 in the fact that, well, if you lose a map, it's not the end of the series, right? You can go and win that second map. And sometimes you'll hear this sort of rhetoric that there's an idea that at a certain point in a map, if you're just getting absolutely demolished, you sort of just go, okay, well, we'll just take the next one. Do you think that is an actual thing, or is it never really like, you know, no, it's always like, yeah, definitely said that. Like, there'll be maps who are down like 15-4 or something like, yeah. Guys, just start trying to frag. Just get your fucking heads. Yeah. Get your aim warm sharp. Warm up for the next one. Yeah, warm up for the next one. And I've said that like 10 times, and sometimes we've made those comebacks as well. I don't know, but it's good to get everyone kind of just try and stop the tilt before it comes. Yeah. Focus on the next map. I don't know if every team does that, but that's definitely something that I do as a caller if we're ever getting completely destroyed first map. Just use anything you can to like keep your team spirits up. Just be like, oh, it's just this map. They're strong in this one. Let's just get them next one. We just got unlucky. Blah blah. Blah. May not be true, but try to keep the spirits up.
Yeah. It does seem strange. You talked about there sometimes how even playing that mindset can sort of help you come back into that game, just sort of playing like, oh, just go get your frags. And obviously, I think that's most prominent when it comes to eco rounds in the Australian scene. Now, I'm not, you're probably aware of it, but there just seems to be this weird sort of meta in Australian CS:GO where you can't win against pistols. They come at you, rush around the corner with pistols, and that's the round done. And there's obviously people that make the jokes. Well, if Australian teams just never buyed rifles, we'd be the best in the world. So
yeah, it's been a common thing for years now, and it is true. It's pretty accurate. Anti-ecos, for whatever reason, I think it's two factors of one, the team that's on the eco, they play like a much looser round, and it's much harder to predict what they're going to do. And the second part is sometimes, not necessarily, but sometimes the CT or the team that's defending against it just thinks the round and back stupid, if that makes sense. So, or like they play a little bit less disciplined. So that's something that could contribute to it. Also, sometimes it's just people hitting ridiculous deagle shots. So
yeah, that always sucks. Just getting deagled in the head offshore. Yeah, brilliant. There's not much you can call against that. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah. So talking obviously to just give it a little bit of a throwback to that Avant game. Obviously, you coming in there as an underdog. Do you think that when a team goes up against someone where you probably know that team, your team knows, okay, we're the underdog here, we're not supposed to win that one, what kind of effect does that have, and why does that seem to always, almost make them that more of a harder match to take, whereas sometimes the 1 and 2, you can have a really close match, or they can, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. If you have 1 and 2, you can get those stomps, right? Because you don't expect it. You see that on Dust 2 for Greyhounds and Order, where it's just this huge stomp and come back in another round. Whereas in the sort of, especially with the very recently today even, we saw Surge take Dust 2 to OT, and I have to imagine that a lot of that is, okay, we're an underdog here, we have nothing to lose. So what do you think is like, how do you think that happens? What is the mindset that allows an underdog team to really compete with, one of the best teams in Australia?
Yeah. I don't know if this is true for other teams or other players, but for me personally, the only time I get nerves is when my team is favored to win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, we lost to Control on last weekend or something.
Yeah.
For the closed qualifier. The qualifier for the qualifier. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, the open qualifier for the closed qualifier. Yeah.
And yeah, like obviously we're favored to win. And that's those games where you start losing a few rounds. That's the ones where I get nerves, Whereas if I come into a game against any other team like at our level or teams that we're the underdogs against, like you said, like I don't really have anything to lose, But in terms of that Avant game, that one was funny to me because I did not feel like we were underdogs at all. Like I felt straight up 50, because they hadn't had too much time to adjust with APOC, and we've been having like pretty good results lately with Jinx back in the roster. So yeah, that one was funny to me. That it was like an underdog situation, but I guess looking at it on paper, it probably should have been. But yeah, I just felt pretty confident going to that from the get-go. Like I just thought we had a really good shot at winning it. So yeah.
Just for context sake, I don't know if I said Control or Surge there, but I meant Control. Or did I say Surge? I meant to say Control. Yeah. I was thinking back on it going, oh, did I just say Surge? I meant Control. Just so I don't get absolutely destroyed. So speaking about rankings and sort of having an underdog situation right now, obviously it's been very shaky recently. We're coming into the qualifiers, which is going to be a big sort of showing of where people stand, because you can't really go you know, sometimes you lose a BO3 and the excuse is, oh, well, we're prepping for quals, you know, we're prepping for the right tournament to show up. So obviously these quals coming up is there's no real excuse there for your results at these tournaments. So I think a lot of these results can kind of affect or will affect the way we rank the top 10 teams in Australia right now. So obviously, with the recent results, I do think it's very close past number 5 right now, as to who's moving around in that situation, because I think it's
close past number 3, to be honest.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It is. I would agree with you, but I think there is a little bit of a you know, there's little bits of breaks. But what I'm saying when I say close, I mean like from 6 to 10 even. You could have like, you know, you could have 4 teams just all competing for those at any point. So obviously right now, for me, my personal opinion, I have Greyhounds at 1, Order at 2, Chiefs at 3, Breakaway at 4, Paradox at 5, Athletico at 6 because of recent results, and then you guys Genuine at 7, Avant at 8, Surge at 9, and Ground Zero at number 10. So I don't know if you have results off the top of your head. Feel free to open up HLTV, the rankings if you need it. But what would you say, you know, how do you feel current teams are ranking up against each other right now? We'll start with the top 5.
I would disagree with that. The way I'd put it would be just based on scrims in my games against them, like officials against them, and just from watching them play. I'd say Greyhound, even though their form the past few days has been interesting, but I don't know if that's just jet lag. Something like that. Greyhound, Chiefs, Order, and then from that point it gets sketchy.
Yeah.
Breakaway, slumping a little bit.
Yeah.
They're the 4th best. I'd probably put Athletico at 5.
Yeah, because their lineup is so strange when it comes to Chelios. Because it's like
it's an interesting situation.
Yeah. Because he just, like, he's such a tremendous player in that lineup where it's like, you know, whether or not he continues in that lineup is a really big factor of whether or not they are in that top ranking. So it is a weird situation.
Together very well. Like he has a noticeable impact on how they play.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I imagine he's contributing as like secondary caller because they definitely kind of play a little bit different, or at least, I don't know, it may just be placebo, but they're also a lot sharper with him AWPing. And yeah, I don't know how much, like, what happened with his thing overseas with Ocean and all that, but, and whether he's here to stay. But if he is, Athletico will definitely keep improving. After Athletico, I'd probably rate, I don't know, I don't want to be like insulting to any teams.
It's your opinion. You say whatever you want, mate.
I think I'd probably put us at 6th, but I think every team is biased to their own team, obviously. I just think we are steadily improving, but that's also depending on the day. So yeah, I'd probably put Avant at 7, Ground Zero at 8, Paradox at 9, or Paradox at 8 and Ground Zero at 9. That one's kind of sketchy. And then after that, I don't know.
So you have Paradox ranked quite low compared to what some other people would have. So what would be, what's your, is that just off scrims or what's the?
That's off a lot of things. I really like all of them.
Yeah.
And I think they're all really good players. But with this recent change, they're going to need time to improve with Kingfisher.
Yeah,
because
sure.
He's going to implement a much more structured play style than what they were playing before. And B, we don't struggle against them as much. Like the last time we lost them was the grand finals of LPL.
Yeah.
One season ago in New Zealand. And they played really well there. But after that, I don't know, we haven't struggled against them as much. And like, I haven't kind of seen the level of, I don't know, the level that we see from other teams, I guess.
Yeah.
Not to say that they can't do damage on their day, like they obviously beat Order and stuff like that, which is really sick, but I'm not sure what exactly is different in that game than is in ours. I don't know. But just from my personal experiences against them, I wouldn't rate them as higher as the Avants and Atleticos and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, there's definitely a call for that. I think obviously the main issue, especially because I watch a lot of MDL, is you guys weren't in that MDL season, so that kind of it screws with the results a little bit there, and then you have to look at ESL. But I would say ESL games kind of mean more because they're all BO3s, right? So there is a bit of a more importance on those ESL games. So yeah, that's an interesting outlook for it. So actually, just quickly segueing to that ESL system. So obviously, they currently operate with a round robin system. That's their format that they go for, right? And obviously, I don't know if you saw this, but I think a couple of weeks ago, XeshTV came out with an announcement that basically said they're no longer going to feature online leagues that are round robin systems. Now, at first, I know a lot of people were a bit sort of, you know, that's discouraging, obviously, because ESL ANZ Champs is a big part of our scene and all that, etc., etc. So, but I also think that round robin system is kind of a bit. It's not a great format. Would you agree with that, or do you like that format?
I've always preferred the Swiss system or something, just not the round robin. Just because I know there's games where they literally mean nothing.
Exactly.
Like, it kind of cheapens the whole thing, in my opinion. It's like this team have and you know, like, what's the incentive other than pride? And I get that. I mean, I'm not saying teams are throwing or anything, but I don't think they're going to prepare as hard or they're going to be as motivated to win that game. And I think it just makes it less important. So
because it does indeed create problems when you have games that literally mean nothing. Like,
exactly.
What's the point?
And I know, like, for me, I'd always try as hard as I could, but surely there's going to be some people who are just like, fuck it, I don't really care. You know, and they're not going to do the usual preparation that they might do. They may not play properly, that kind of thing. So Right.
So if you were, you know, going to switch the system, where would be that Swiss system that you would go with then?
I don't know too much about the actual systems. I've just heard the Swiss system touted as like this great, you know, revolutionary thing. And like, you see it in the pro scene a lot overseas, and I think it, you know, it seems to work well out there. And it just means every game's important, right? Like, it means every game counts for every team. So I feel like that's just a much more effective way of doing it. I mean, I guess the downside is that it means some teams will play less games, like the teams that go out. Play that.
It's not great for sponsorships, I would imagine, right? Obviously, round robin's the best for an economical.
Exactly.
Because you're going to get all that screen time, it gets confirmed, and you can. It's it's a bit more luxurious, I suppose. So
so there's positives and negatives for both, but I think in terms of the actual game, the Swiss system's better. So that's something that I care about more anyway.
Yeah, well, that's fair. All right, so excuse me. So speaking about the ESL, AU and Z sports, you are now going to be moving into the playoffs of that, or the derby as it's being touted. Let me bring up the link there so I can actually make sure I've got it. So I do have it. So obviously you've made it into the derby here, which is one of the ways to qualify for IEM Sydney. And this is a 4-team qualifier. It's single elimination, and you will be going up against Chiefs first up. So it's obviously, it's a bit of a rude awakening, a shake of the head, I would suppose.
It's gonna be good fun.
Yeah, so unless Chiefs win the IEM Sydney quals, in which case they'd be taken out of this tournament, that will be your matchup. So what for you right now, if you excuse me, if you have been thinking about it, what is the sort of mindset? Okay, what's the first steps to try and build something that's going to be able to contend?
I think obviously we're heavy underdogs for that game. And everyone's
which might benefit you in the mentality wise of
I mean, we're going to go into it thinking we don't have much to lose here. We're expected to lose. No one's but I don't know, maybe that'll give us the mental boost. But I think the important thing right now is like when we've got so much practice we need to do. Like the way we're playing right now, there's so much more to practice. We know what our issues are. We know how to fix them. I think if we can have, I believe it's on Tuesday, right? The derby or something like that.
I think so. It's next week.
We don't have that much time to actually prepare for this and, study Chiefs, even if we're going to do that. But we definitely just need as much practice as we can get in between this time to solve these mistakes that keep happening. Because we've won our last few games, but they've all been pretty close to an extent, especially the one against Atletico where it was like 3 full maps, 2 of them going overtime. Like there's so many of these like little mistakes that we have to solve and need out. So that's pretty much what we're going to be focusing on going to that. I don't think there's like a huge expectation of that we're going to win from most people, but I think we do have a chance. And if everyone shows up on the day, everyone puts in the work, then yeah, we've got a decent chance.
Let me just I just realized I'm a Sith Lord right now in the darkness of the night. Let me just open this up so that I'm not completely hidden. I just open up the thing and I see myself just in the darkness plotting a plan. All right, so you can actually see me now. Anyway, so the other matchup that'll be in that one is Greyhound versus Breakaway, unless, of course, the problem is that obviously Greyhounds and Chiefs are both in here, and I would imagine you, especially having them ranked 1 and 2, would probably think at least one of these teams will be taken out and make that way to the qualifier. Chiefs right now looking really good, like this is obviously classic Chiefs. We're about to qualify for Sydney form where everybody just turns on and suddenly it's like, what the hell's going on? Is this the best team in Australia? You look at that thing. So
the roster they have now is like a very strong roster, and in my opinion, they can definitely contend for number 1. Like you got Blitz, who puts in more hours than anyone else. It's insane.
Yeah, ungodly.
Yeah, and he's so sharp as well, and he's IGLing. He's the least experienced in that team, but I think he's got a really good mind for the game. And then you've got like Tux has been playing insanely well lately. Zusi and Ovnu are obviously nuts, and then you've got Texter who's fucking insane. So overall, like they've just got an all-round roster that's really sharp. And I know from scrimming against them a few times, they just like pull players out of their ass. It's crazy. But they obviously need time to work with what is effectively 3 new players. So having switched Blitz to IGL and then getting in Zusi and Ovnu, they need time to establish the system they want to. So they're just going to keep improving, and they're going to be really, really scary. Well, scarier than they are now. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you, if you compare Greyhounds and Chiefs together, is there, obviously Greyhounds are the number 1, but do you actually prefer playing Chiefs against them, or you prefer playing Greyhounds? Is there, because I know it does seem like there's this weird sort of Chiefs magic where if you're not Greyhounds or Order, they're just suddenly it's like, oh, okay, well everybody's getting triple kills and cool, he just jumped out B on Dust 2 and headshot me in the head midair. What am I going to do about that?
Like in terms of raw skill, they've got like just one of the most star-studded lineup pretty much.
Yeah.
Like every player can just do insane, can just pop up on their own. The same is true of Greyhound, obviously. I don't have that much experience scrimming against Greyhound. Like we haven't played against them that much. And we've only played against Chiefs, this new roster, a little bit. So I don't have too much experience with either, to be honest. But yeah, so I can't really make an informed opinion. I think I'd probably prefer to play against Chiefs just because I feel like they have a few more gaps in their whole thing because they haven't had as much time as Greyhound. Yeah. But at the same time, it's fucking. They're hard to play against, so I don't know. It's kind of a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. So you talked about obviously still having a lot of things that you feel like your team can be practicing. So do you think there's still a pretty long a longevity to this lineup right now? Are you quite happy with it? You do see like a plan moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone's really happy with the lineup. We've had
good results as well.
Yeah, we've had good results since we got Jinx back. 5 officials ago. He came back like a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And we need a lot more time to like implement what we want to implement and actually have the stuff we want, because we're still like fumbling around a fair amount of the time. We're still like completely redoing maps and things like that. But yeah, like we've got a lot of work to do, like I said. But this lineup, I think, barring some unforeseen problem, I think will stay around for quite a while. The only real issue I'd say with like keeping the lineup going is that Jinx is a full-time med student.
Yeah.
So he's very busy and quite often can't practice. Well, not quite often, but every now and then he can't play, or has to show up late. Like we can't play until 8 o'clock on Tuesdays. Have to go off early sometimes. Blah blah blah. And if I don't know if that's going to become an issue with like if he can continue to maintain this this amount of hours doing things, going to uni all day, coming home, playing CS, getting 5 hours of sleep. It's pretty rough, but yeah, besides that, like everything's great with this lineup. So yeah.
So talking about obviously certain players and sort of requirements and what different aspects of players will bring to a team, what would you say? Obviously, I know a lot of people talk about how important game sense is compared to, say, just aiming someone's head off. So when for you as an in-game leader, when you look at a player, is there a certain level of like, okay, well, I need you to be at this level of knowledge of the game? Or is it like, if you have some guy that has absolutely no clue what he's doing, but every time he walks into a site, he shoots 3 people in the head? Is it like, is that almost just this, the benefit outweighs the cons in that scenario?
I think it's pretty rare that you can find a player who is all aim no brain, who is actually going to get you further than someone who's, who actually knows what they're doing. Like, I've played with players who are super sharp and have no idea what they're doing, and have no idea how to play the game, and it can be very frustrating to play with them.
Especially because it's like, they're top fragging and they don't seem to understand. I would imagine they wouldn't understand. Well, why are you complaining? I just top frag for our team, Yeah,
exactly. Like that kind of thing really gets to me, and I don't like that attitude at all. I think like there's a certain point where it's like having this X Factor player who he entries and he just died, like he just goes in, kills a bunch of people and whatever. That's going to get you only so far, like that's that kind of play. And I think the level we're at now, that can get you this far. Like if you have just insanely sharp players, you can potentially get to where we are now, because it's not like we're fucking insane or anything. But you're not going to get much further. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to crack the top 4 or anything with just players who are complete spastics. And I just think it's so much better to have someone who knows what they're doing and is like malleable and has that capacity to learn, rather than just having somebody who walks in and clicks heads and is like has no fucking clue what they're doing and doesn't know how to make their own decisions. Blah blah blah. You got to micro them. Blah blah. It's just I've had to micro too many people.
I can feel the rage coming off you right now. So you've played recently, or not recently, obviously it was a while back, but you played at the it was the LPL finals, the LAN. Is that correct? You were at the LPL LAN? Yeah. So for you, obviously that was that still the lineup that you have now, or was it a different player?
That was the lineup we have now, yeah. So that was just before Jinx had to go on that 6-week break for his wrist.
Right.
And that was with Stat subbing in. So he hadn't joined the team at that point. That was just, we had like a couple of weeks with Stat to try and work out what the fuck we were going to do. And then just went in and we went pretty well up until the final.
So would you say with that sort of LAN setting, is there a difference? What's the main big difference, obviously, aside from the obvious, between playing at a LAN and, playing online?
I think the main thing for LAN with me is just that I feel so much more awake.
Yeah.
Like, online, unless I drink like 8 coffees, I just feel like fucking zoned out half the time, and I'm not like fully engaged in the game. But at LAN, it's like just all cylinders firing. You know, I'm super into it, super keen. Everyone's hyped up. I think, yeah, like I'm a pretty decent LAN player just because I get really hyped.
Yeah.
You know, like I have decent results at LAN, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's also much easier to communicate what you'd want to do or what's going wrong. Like being able to fucking like point at the screen or like look at your teammates in the eyes and tell them, "Fucking idiot, stop doing that." So yeah, I definitely prefer LAN as well. It's just more fun all around.
So I do have a question because I was thinking about this before, because obviously I actually I watch quite a lot of UFC, right? And a big part of that right now is, you know, people talking about how much the mental game is of talking shit to your opponent and telling them they're trash. And obviously you don't really see a lot of too much of that when it comes to CSGO and especially other games. It's more prominent in CSGO, but at a professional level, it's not like too often that you see that. So do you think that there is any sort of value at that, especially in a LAN setting? Do you think it's possible to get into someone's head if you're yelling across the room at them?
Yeah, so back when we were in Taboo, the lineup of myself, Dirty, Jinx, Mini, and Skull went to that. It was a CGPL LAN.
Yeah.
And that was one of those LANs where you're like pretty much directly next to each other, like both teams are right there, and we were just shouting everything at the other team. We were just having a great time and insulting them in a lot of ways.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so especially Mini, he just got fucking into it. But yeah, and then comparatively to this team, where I feel like I think when you're representing an org, generally you want to maintain a respectful environment.
Whereas back in the day, it's a freestyle. You know, you going in there, the hands up, getting ready to
exactly.
Strike.
We were just having a ball, but I don't think it probably didn't come off the best.
Yeah,
luckily most of it. But I think I personally prefer. I don't like when it's actually vindictive, like when people are legitimately trying to fuck with people. But if you're just having fun and just saying stupid insults, I don't really care.
Yeah.
And I find that funny. It's just, yeah, when people like actually get angry and start, you know, trying to viciously insult the other person. I don't think that has a place in the game, really.
Can you think of something that someone's yelled that has been, you know, very entertaining for you? Is there anything that stands out as like a line somebody said that you were like, oh my lord?
I think Mini pulling out the 0-7 thing at LAN while himself being 0-7 was pretty classic.
Brilliant.
Just having the worst map of his life and just screaming his head off, and then tilting himself into not getting kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that
was funny.
I feel like there's nothing better than whoever's playing the worst on the team just talking as much shit as possible, just because it's so like. I love it. There's no way you're not getting tilted by some guy who's 0-7 just yelling abuse at you the entire time. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Exactly. It's somehow more insulting when it's just this guy going 0-10, like saying this shit.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay, well, obviously it's been lovely having you on here. I just wanted to finish off with one question, or last question for you when it comes to this team. Excuse me. What are your goals when it comes to as a player right now and as this team? Where do you see yourself and this lineup moving forward? What are the kind of things you want to achieve in the next 6 months or so, or year, or what's the roadmap?
Yeah, I don't know if it's achievable in the next 6 months or year. I'm not sure, but I think going overseas is a like properly overseas, not just New Zealand, is a big goal for a lot of people in the team. But also obviously cracking the top 4 or 3 or whatever it is now. It's kind of the main focus, like getting to that point where we're able to best these teams around us consistently. Because at the moment it's such a 50-50 with all these games. Like who's gonna take, every team can take maps off each other. And I think reaching that point where you're considered above them that's something that, at least for me, I want to get to. But yeah, I'd say like the main thing is just going overseas. That's the part that I'm really keen for. You know, being able to experience different countries, different cultures and stuff while playing CS. That's kind of the dream. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on for episode 9 of the podcast. It was lovely having you here, and I do indeed wish you the best of luck at the Derby and all your following matches coming up. And I'll be make sure that I'll tune in as long as there's a stream for it. And thank you guys for tuning in. And I think I should be back next week with another interview, depending on whether or not people, followed through or whatever. Anyway, regardless, I thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.
Catch you later.